Hello, welcome to Truth and Wellness. We know that truth is important to you, and we also know that wellness is important to all of us. And so we want to bring to you stories of people who have overcome obstacles in their lives, those who bring us stories of encouragement. So I'm so glad that you have joined us today, and also our guest, Marvin Lowman. I'm your host, Gail McKenzie, and we are going to be talking about several different things here a little bit. Marvin, you used to live here. How many years did you live in Nashville?
I lived in Nashville area for about 16 years.
16 years. Goodlettsville,
Yes.
I think you said, to
Yes.
be exact,
To
a little
be
bit
exact,
north.
right.
Yes, yes. And Marvin and I have worked together for 16 years, I think, just about.
Pretty much.
Yes, yes. And you also have done something for our show here. So what is it that you've been doing for us?
Well, I've been doing the final editing for all of the shows, yeah.
That's very important. So we're really glad that you have gone through some phases in your life, and you are now in a new phase. Tell us a little bit about that. What is the major change that came to you from Nashville to where you are now?
All right, well, it's called retirement.
Okay, okay.
I served the Seventh-day Adventist Church as a minister for 46 years,
Okay.
and retired in June of 2012.
That's a long time. That's a good long time.
Yes, and the first 16 years of that time was spent in pastoral ministry,
Okay,
and the remainder in church administration.
okay.
And the final 16, of course, here in Nashville, working for the Kentucky-Tennessee Conference. And it was a very rewarding career. I loved my work.
Tell us, what were a few of the things that you did that specifically? I know
Well, of
you
course,
worked with-
pastoring
Yes.
involves pastoring a church or churches.
Right,
And I pastored districts of up to 3 churches. I've pastored a single church.
Okay.
As my final assignment here in Kentucky-Tennessee Conference was that of the executive secretary, which
Okay.
is kind of the second officer in the administrative team.
Like a vice president.
Like a
maybe,
vice
or
president.
something like that. Okay.
And also I served as the communication director and a few other smaller responsibilities.
I think you even did some
Which-
disaster relief. Am I right?
Disaster response
Training
and
and-
community services, training and responding to disasters.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a work that kept me busy. And of course, retirement, you wonder, well, when you stop working, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And but that's where my involvement with the Help Hope ministry came in,
Okay.
as editing, because I continue to do that. So that occupies some of my time.
So we've still got you working, don't we?
You still
Yes,
have me
yes,
working.
Yes, that's good.
And I really enjoy it.
Yeah. When you were preparing for retirement, for some of our viewers that may be, thinking ahead, what were some of the things that you and your wife, Danette, had to discuss or think about? I mean, what were those things that you had to look at and say, okay, what's ahead?
Well, of course, one of the major things I think is how are you going to support yourself once you're retired?
Okay. Yes, big thing.
Ideally, a person starts planning as soon as they join the workforce.
Right.
But I think very few people actually do that. And it's difficult because usually when you're young, you're starting a family, raising a family, and that takes pretty much all of your resources
Yeah.
just doing that.
Yeah.
And so there often isn't a lot of money to put away for retirement. But if a couple can do that, that's the ideal. Fortunately, our church had a retirement program that was available to us, and
Very
in
important.
later years that we
Yes.
could actually pay into to build up a retirement nest egg, and then Social Security for the both of us. And so, planning how you're going to finance your retirement is an important thing, but also, where are you going to live? Are you going to
Right.
stay where you're living when you retire? Are you going to try to move where your children are, which in our case, our children live in 2 different places. We have 2 children.
Okay.
One lives in the Chattanooga area, one lives in the Orlando, Florida area. We chose Orlando.
You chose the warm place
We chose
to go,
the
didn't
warm
you? Yes,
place.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
a warm
I don't
weather
blame you.
person. I do not like cold.
Yes.
And even though we spent 8.5 years in South Dakota, that's
Oh,
amazing.
wow. Okay, yes, yes.
We look back sometimes and wonder how we survived those 20 below days
Yes,
in the
yes.
middle of winter.
Yeah.
But we now live in Orlando, Florida, and enjoy it there.
You're down there with Mickey Mouse, right?
Down there with the
Yeah.
with Mickey Mouse.
With Mickey Mouse and all the rest of the gang. Okay, so so then you had to once you came to that date, that final date of retirement, you put your home up for sale, I'm assuming, and
Right. Well, I retired, as I said, about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
My wife wanted to work a little longer,
okay.
and she retired just last August, so
Oh, okay.
fairly recent. And so we decided that once she retired, that we would put our house on the market and move to Florida to be closer to our daughter and her family, as well as my mother, who is 94 years of age, living
Oh, wow.
in a retirement center.
Wow.
We wanted to be closer to
Sure.
her to assist her when she needed it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did we did a lot of praying.
Yes.
We did a lot of praying about this because we wanted to be in the right place. We wanted to be where the Lord wanted us to be too.
Right.
And so selling a home in the economic climate that we were in at that time was a little concern. But the Lord worked it all out in an amazing way.
Sold your house and found
our,
another
our
place
house
down
sold
there?
quickly. We found just the perfect house
Good. Good.
actually Altamont Springs,
Okay.
which is a suburb of the Orlando area. So we
Well,
made the move, and
Yeah.
and
So now
we're-
you're there.
We're there.
Okay.
We're
So
there.
now, maybe what we might, our viewers might want to know is, what were some of the adjustments that you had to make? I mean, besides you don't have a job anymore that's paying you. So,
Yeah, well,
because Health Hope we know is a volunteer right now. So, but what were the adjustments? What comes with retirement?
even though we had actually lived in the Orlando area years ago, nearly 40 years ago, so there have been a lot of changes. Adjusting to new surroundings, finding doctors and dentists
yes.
and
Forgot about all that,
and
yes.
optometrists and all of those things that
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah.
Getting familiar with the new surroundings, and getting involved in things. We wanted to continue to be active. We're very active people, and my wife especially has to be busy.
Okay. Okay. Yes,
I'm
I
a little more laid back, but
she likes something to do,
yes.
doesn't she? Yeah.
one of the big adjustments was not having to get up at 4:45 every
Okay.
morning to get her off to her job.
Wow.
So now we can sleep in a little bit, which is nice.
Yes.
But we continue to run and
Yeah, I was going to mention
continue our
that.
exercise program.
Yeah, you guys are runners, aren't you?
We are runners.
Yes, yes, and you have run even some marathons or
We
half
have
marathons.
run, I think I've run 3 marathons. I think she's
Okay.
run 3. We've run several half marathons and a number of shorter races, 10Ks and 5Ks.
Yeah.
So,
in fact, your son has kind of picked up on that too, I believe.
Our
hasn't
son actually was our inspiration.
he? Okay.
He
all
started
right.
running marathons about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And we picked up on that and said, well, if he can do it, we can do it too. And so our daughter as well. So we all run. And
Okay.
he has done the Disney Marathon 10 years in a row.
Oh my. Okay.
And
That's
from that
pretty good.
beginning, he got into doing triathlons,
Oh wow.
swim, bike, run. And he has done a number, started out doing short triathlons and then longer, and eventually did the half Ironman. And then a few years ago, he did the full Ironman and did that, and ended up qualifying to go to the World Championships in Kona, Hawaii
Wow.
in 2012, I think.
Wow.
I don't remember the year. But
Fairly recently,
maybe it was
though.
11. Maybe it
Yeah.
was 11.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
that was a dream come true for him.
Yeah. In fact, you just came from up north. What did he just run?
And we just came back from Boston,
The Boston
where he ran in the Boston Marathon.
Wow. Wow.
So he
Yeah.
qualified for that last year in the Disney Marathon, and The Boston Marathon is very interesting. It's the oldest marathon in the country. And even though you qualify, you have to qualify in order to run in Boston. But even though you qualify, you still have to apply and be accepted. So it's even though you qualify, it's not a given that you actually get to run the Boston Marathon.
Really?
And this year, of course, was a very unusual year because of what happened in 2013. And so there were more runners in the Boston Marathon this year. There were a total of 36,000 who started.
Wow.
I think there were only like 32,000 that finished, but 36,000 started. And of course, the race did not have the catastrophic ending that it did last year. And it was a beautiful day. The weather was wonderful, and he had a great time.
And he had a great run.
He had a good run, and actually qualified again for next year.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. Let me ask you, just maybe on the health side of it, what has running done for you as far as your physical health? I mean, I can't imagine that it hasn't been good for you. So. Well,
it is. Now, I will say that I believe that there is a point beyond which it ceases to have a lot of benefit. I think you can, if you do too much, I think it can have an adverse effect.
Right.
But my wife and I run 3 miles about every other day, and then we run 5 to 6 miles on the weekend. And that keeps us in shape.
Right.
It's good for our cardiovascular health.
Wow.
And I like to eat. So it burns
kind of keeps you in balance.
It burns up a few of those extra calories that I would love to put on. But I think that the health benefits are great.
Yeah.
And so we continue to run even as we get older.
Now, one of the things that I would guess too that you had to do, of course, down there in Florida, is to find a new church family.
New church family,
yes.
right.
And so what have you done there? How has that transition gone?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that being involved is important, and we enjoy being involved in the church. And I have, because of my experience here at NECAT and the studio, I have joined the media team there.
All right, and, you go. That's good.
So that's going to help keep me busy.
Yeah.
And I've also been asked to chair one of the committees in the church.
Wow. Okay.
And my wife and I are both on the greeting team, which is called First Impressions.
Oh, I like that. First Impressions. Yeah. Hey, might steal that. That's good.
That's all right. Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. I like that. Yeah, that's great. So just keeping busy has really made a difference for you guys. Yeah. In fact, are you as busy as you were almost? Or not quite?
Probably not quite as busy, but that's good too.
Yeah.
Because it gives us a little more free time. We plan to do a little traveling, and having lived in Florida before, there are a lot of places that we want to go back and get reacquainted with.
Yeah.
We have a lot of friends in Florida too, which is kind of neat. Friends that we knew in college that have settled in that area. People that we knew from when we lived there before. So we're just having fun. It's, Now I will say that the adjustment to retirement has been a little bit more difficult for my wife.
That's it.
That was for me. I think people say, how are you getting used to retirement? And I tell them, it took me about 5 minutes.
I think that would be for me too. I think
like I said, I enjoyed my work.
Yes.
But when the time came to retire, I was ready.
You were ready.
And I'm enjoying that that flexibility and freedom. But she was very focused on her job as a certified dental assistant. She enjoyed her work very much. She's a very much a people person.
Yes.
She enjoyed the people she worked with. She enjoyed the patients, and not to be able to do that now, so she's having a little harder time adjusting to that.
Yeah.
But she'll eventually find
she'll get there. I think that she'll get there. Well, she'll probably. Well, I think what'll happen, she'll get busier with a lot of other things. She's going to kind of keep plugging into some of those empty spaces there. So I know Danette. I know she's going to be that way. Let's kind of switch gears here a little bit, and Marvin, let's talk about your personal faith. and maybe your faith walk, maybe what is your first recollection of how you knew God was God? And I mean, were you a child? Were you teenager? What's kind of your background, and what kind of gave you that direction in your life where you started a faith walk?
I grew up in the Lutheran church.
Okay.
My parents were Lutherans, attended the local Lutheran church in our community. And we went to church nearly every Sunday, and I remember going to vacation Bible school at the Lutheran church. So I can't think of any time that I didn't believe that there was a God.
I see. Yeah. He was very real to you.
He was very real.
Yes.
Very real. And but as I got older, when I was about 7 years old, my parents began attending the Seventh-day Adventist church.
Okay.
And were eventually baptized and became Seventh-day Adventists. So from the time I was 7, that's when I think, began to learn more and more about the Bible. Because even though my parents attended the Lutheran church, religion wasn't a real big part of our lifestyle.
Right.
It was, attend church and then that was it. When my parents became Seventh-day Adventists, it became much more of a part of our personal lifestyle. There was more Bible reading in the home.
Okay.
My sister and I were encouraged to read the Bible for ourselves. We attended church regularly and a lot of other church functions. And so God and Jesus became much more real to me at that point.
And you were, you were getting old enough that those things made more sense also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the Seventh-day Adventist faith is very different in some respects because we keep the Saturday as the Sabbath. So that was a little different. And attending public school, it was always a little awkward, not attending football games on Friday night and things like that.
There were some changes then for you, even like in your lifestyle kind of thing. Yes.
And I wish I could say that I always exhibited my faith in a strong way. That was not the case. But after
I wonder what you were like as a teenager. I'd like to.
Well, we won't go there. But
we won't. No.
When I graduated from high school, I decided that I wanted to go to a Christian college. So I attended Southern Missionary College, which now is Southern Adventist University in Collegedale, Tennessee. Okay. And that's where my faith in God really deepened, because I realized that if I was going to have a very personal faith, it had to be my own. It couldn't be something that I inherited from my parents.
Right.
It had to be my own. And I began to read the Bible with more interest and another book that meant a great deal to me was a book called The Desire of Ages by Ellen G. White on the life of Christ.
Yes, it's on the whole life, isn't it?
And another little book called Steps to Christ.
Okay.
And those two books really gave me a greater understanding of God's love and His great sacrifice for us. And in fact, when I went to college, my goal was to do something in the medical profession. I was thinking of maybe a lab tech or something like that. And so I began taking science classes, chemistry and anatomy and physiology.
Okay. And so you were kind of headed a different direction.
I was really headed a different direction.
Okay.
And about halfway through my freshman year in college, I began to feel the Lord drawing me into a more of a ministerial role. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that, being in a Christian college, there were dormitory worships, and we were actually required to attend church on Sabbath, on Saturday. Okay. And
back then that was a little different today, I think.
But I think the big things were the weeks of prayer.
Yes.
We always had a fall week of prayer, and then a spring week of prayer. We had a special guest speaker come onto the campus and speak to us twice a day, and somehow the messages that were presented by those men just they touched my
They
heart.
resonated with
Yeah.
your heart. Yeah, yeah.
And by the time the spring of the first year came around, I just felt very strongly that the Lord wanted me to be a minister.
Wow. Wow.
But I had a problem.
Okay. You had a
see,
girlfriend? No?
I had a girlfriend. And even though she also was a Seventh-day Adventist, she had made it pretty clear that she had no interest in being a minister's wife.
Okay. So don't even go
So-
there.
And because she had heard my parents talk about that, because they wanted me to be a
Yes,
minister.
yes.
I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So when I felt the Lord drawing me towards that kind of a career, I said,
Whoa.
Lord, we've got a problem, and you've got to solve it, because I'm not sure I want to,
Yeah.
have to choose between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went home from college on spring break that year, and I knew I had to fess up, and so we went out one on a Saturday night. Went out for a date, and when we got back to her house, before I let her off, I said, I need to tell you something. And I confessed to her that I had been really thinking about going into the ministry. And I was afraid what her response was going to be. But immediately she said, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Wow.
And it was just
You didn't expect that, did you?
I didn't expect it, but
Wow.
it was a direct answer to prayer that
Was.
moves me when I think about it
I
right
know.
now, because
I know.
I didn't expect it, and I thought it was going to be a battle, and
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether I was up to the battle. So so God was good,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I will say that she is a fantastic minister's wife. And,
yes, yes.
And I don't
She's a
think I
sweetheart.
could have ever survived in pastoral ministry
Wow.
without her by my
Wow.
side. So,
So you really can tell that God was really working on her heart
yeah,
at the same time he was working on
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing God we serve, isn't it?
He
Yeah,
is.
That he
But,
would do that. So
I think of, the world that we live in today, and I am
yes.
so grateful for the knowledge that I have of Scripture.
Yes.
I really feel sorry for people who don't have that direction in their lives that the Scriptures can provide, because we are bombarded with all kinds of distractions in today's world,
Yeah.
and there are no absolutes anymore.
No, you're right.
No
about that.
standards, no
I know.
absolutes. Ethics is kind of out the window.
Right.
But the Bible is like the compass, pointing us in the right direction all the time, if we just will study and listen.
If we'll take the time.
Yeah, if we'll take the
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, it gives us our picture. It tells us who God is
Yes.
and who he wants us to be.
Yeah.
And but at that time is now you're retired. You've got more time probably
Yes.
too, huh?
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. I was going to say maybe thinking about young people today and the things that pull us, the electronics
Oh,
and
my, yes.
that were not there years ago, and it's really hard to set that aside and go to silence and solitude and taking that soul time, that time with just you and God.
Yeah.
And so it's nice maybe now retirement gives you even some more opportunity for
Yes,
that
it
too.
does. And I've always, had my devotional time in the early part of the day.
Okay.
I think that's important. Some people say, well, I'm not a morning person. But my feeling has always been that if you put it off to later in the day, it
Yeah.
probably won't get done,
Yeah.
number one.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a good way to start the day.
Yeah.
Since we've retired, my wife gets the opportunity to sleep in a little longer. I wake up early, so
Okay.
so it's kind of nice to get up. The house is quiet. I
Ah.
go by myself and do
And
my
have your-
devotional
yeah.
time before she's even up, and
That's
and
nice. That's
so
nice. Yeah.
it's a good way to start the day.
Yeah. I have kind of an alarm clock built in. I don't know why, but all growing up, I had to get up early, lived on a farm, So 5:30, it's just like 5:30, I wake up, and that is nice. I like
Yeah.
being kind of ahead of everybody else and everything else in the
Right.
house, it's really nice to take that. And it's very important to take that time
Yeah.
too, so.
I'm not a journaler.
Okay, I was going to
people like
ask
to
you
journal.
if you
I'm
do
not a
any
journaler.
journaling.
I've tried
Okay.
it. I've tried it. It just doesn't work for me. But I do keep a list in my Bible of the people that I pray for every day. You know, family members, friends, other needs that I hear about, and you know, I can go through that list.
Yeah.
You know, as I pray, and I typically read from the Bible and then some other inspirational material. I love, you know, I mentioned that book Desire of Ages, and
Yes.
I love rereading it.
So you go back
And
through
and
that.
and the little book Steps to Christ I've read so many times. I've got it pretty well marked up, and I probably need to get a new book and start underlining some
again.
more. But
Well, you know, those are, I know I have some favorite devotionals. You know, Charles Spurgeon is one of my favorites too, so I have one of his books, and I really appreciate that. So some of those are really can speak to you and really make a difference in our faith. So, Marvin, is there anything that you would like to finish with here today? Just maybe an invitation, something you might want to ask and challenge our viewers in their faith in retirement, and what would you like to say kind of to conclude our visit today?
well, about retirement, I think that it's very important to remain active and to reach out to people in your retirement. It's you know, people sometimes just stop doing anything,
Yes.
and then they get bored, they're unhappy. I
Yep.
think serving other people is really important.
It is important,
It brings
isn't
a lot of personal satisfaction, and it's helpful to other people.
And you have the time now when you're retired.
And we have the time.
That's great. So,
And I think it's also important to maintain your spiritual connection with God too.
yes, very important.
Yeah, that's you never retire from that part.
No, that's a
Yeah.
good point. I like that point.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Marvin, it's been great to have you here.
Been a pleasure to be here, Gail.
And we wish you the very best in your retirement.
Thank you.
And we are grateful that you are still going to do editing for us. And so I guess we'll still have some contact there, and maybe you'll come up and see us occasionally. So
Plan to do it.
thank you for joining us today on Truth and Wellness, and we hope that you'll tune in again. Thank you.